My name is Tiffany, and things started to go wrong when I was just 17 years old. I grew up in what I believed to be a fairly typical family. There I was with my 10-year-old younger brother and our parents. My grandpa had started the family firm from the ground up, and Dad was a manager there. It all began with a network of coffee shops, which developed into this significant, high-end coffee enterprise. Grandpa was a tremendous go-getter. However, he didn't simply sell the company or let it go when he made the decision to retire. No, it was his offer to Mom. I recall hearing that talk overheard. "Let John handle it. I'm happy being a housewife," Mom said in a voice as plain as day. That was the end of it. After Dad took over, things continued. I didn't become aware of the gaps in our family's foundation until I was in my teens. Dad and Mom started fighting more and more. Mom was critical of everything Dad did or did not do. She seemed to be attempting to agitate him and test his limits. And she'd play the victim until he'd ultimately crack and raise his voice. She would cry to everyone who would listen, "See how he treats me. He yells at me, and all I'm trying to do is keep this family together." I was at a loss for what to think. Despite my affection for both of my parents, I could not stand to see them fight so much. Although my brother was too little to fully comprehend what was going on, I could always see the terror and bewilderment in his eyes when Mom and Dad got into a fight. Everything came to a head one night. A crash occurred as I was in my room attempting to use music to block out their most recent disagreement. With my pulse pounding, I dashed downstairs to discover a scene that would forever alter my life. Dad was standing over Mom, who was lying on the floor. He hit me. She screamed. Dad had a desperate expression. Tiffany, I didn't touch her. I was attempting to help her up when she fell. However, Mom had already picked up the phone to dial the cops. I was paralyzed in place, unsure of who to trust or how to go. I had the impression that everything in my universe was crumbling around me. I will never forget the night the cops took my father away. I was restless and had a lot of questions in my head. What actually took place? Could Dad really hit Mom? If he didn't lie, why would Mom do it? The days that followed were a haze. Mom dropped the complaint in an act of what she termed kindness, and Dad was freed without being charged. However, the harm had already been done. There was too much stress in our home. With unrelenting intensity, Mom portrayed Dad as this monster who had been torturing her for years. When Dad wasn't there, she would say to me, "He's always had a temper. I have shielded Tommy and you from the worst of it." The divorce proceeded more quickly than I could comprehend. Dad was packing his only luggage one day, feeling disoriented in his own house. With a broken voice, he apologized to the children. "I swear, I'll make this right." However, how was he able to? After the divorce, Mom inherited everything, including the house, the vehicle, and even Dad's job at the firm. There was nothing left for him. Tommy and I were seated for a family meeting by Mom after Dad departed. "Now things will be different," she remarked, grinning but without showing her eyes. "We're safe. Your father can't harm us anymore." Young and naive, Tommy said, "But when is Dad coming home?" Mom mustered another grin, but her face tightened for a moment. "Oh, sweetie, we'll be fine without Dad. He needs some time to work on himself." I couldn't get rid of the sensation that something wasn't quite right, but Mom would always brush me off when I attempted to challenge her account of what happened. "Tiffany, you're too young to understand," she would sneer. "Relationships between adults are complex." Then just 2 months after the split, Mom made another shocking revelation. She said, "Kids, I have wonderful news," one evening. I am getting hitched. I was taken aback. Wed? However, just 2 months have passed since. Mom cut in, I know it seems fast, but you just know when you find true love. It was love at first sight between Robert and me. I was feeling ill. How could she get over this so fast? How about Dad? How about us? Not long after, my new stepfather Robert arrived in. He appeared to get along well with Tommy, so I think he was all right. He didn't really pay much attention to me. I felt even more alone when I heard them giggling and playing video games together. In the meantime, Mom took over the family business and hired Robert to work with her. They were constantly discussing business and plotting, and Tommy and I kind of got lost in the mix. I was disoriented and stuck between this new, unsettling reality and my memories of our family's past. I wondered where I belonged in now, and what actually occurred between Mom and Dad as I watched Mom and Robert swoon over one another at the dinner table, and Tommy cheerfully talking away. Mom dumped another bombshell on us just when I thought things couldn't be any more confusing. She and Robert made the decision to relocate the company's headquarters to a new location that was claimed to have better financial prospects. All of the capital was going to be moved to this new subsidiary. I didn't give it much thought at first. Moving would be awful, but at least our family would be together, right? False. My mother knocked on my door one evening as I was in my room finishing my schoolwork. You know Robert and I are moving for work, Tiffany. Honey. Yes, when are we leaving? I asked, visualizing packed my room already. Mom's lip twisted into something I didn't quite understand. That's the issue, my dear. We decided that because you are almost done with high school and the new house isn't very spacious, it may be best if you stayed here. It was as though I had taken a hit to the belly. Remain in this place. However, Tommy is another story. Mom spoke hurriedly. Tommy needs us more because he's younger. Furthermore, you wouldn't want to switch schools just before a test, would you? We believe that having you live with your granddad is better. I was hearing things that I couldn't believe. I was going to be left behind by them. But Mom, I want to be with you and Tommy. Can't we find a bigger place? Mom's voice turned stern. Tiffany, this has already been decided. It's for the best, trust me. And just like that, my world turned upside down again. Within weeks, Mom, Robert, and Tommy were gone, and I was moving in with Grandpa. Don't get me wrong, Grandpa's great, but I felt abandoned, cast aside like I didn't fit into their new perfect family. My 18th birthday rolled around soon after. I hoped, foolishly perhaps, that Mom and Robert would come back for it. But no, they were too busy with work to make it. Grandpa, bless him, threw me a party and let me invite my friends. It wasn't the same, but I appreciated his effort. The morning after my birthday, Grandpa called me into his home office. He had this serious look on his face as he handed me a small folder. "Happy birthday, Tiffany," he said, a twinkle in his eye. "This is my gift to you now that you're of age." Confused, I opened the folder and started reading the documents inside. My jaw dropped as I realized what I was holding. "Grandpa, this." He nodded, smiling. "That's right, kiddo, I'm giving you the company." I was speechless, me running a whole company at 18. "But Grandpa, I don't know the first thing about running a business." He chuckled. "You've got potential, Tiffany. I see it in you. You'll learn, and I know you'll do great things." Then his face turned serious again. "There's one more thing. I think you should reconcile with your father. Take him on as a consultant. He knows the business, and well, I think there are some things you need to hear from him." I hesitated. After everything Mom had said about Dad, I wasn't sure I wanted to see him, but Grandpa had never steered me wrong before. I met Dad at a small cafe downtown, my stomach in knots as I approached our table. I saw him stand up, a hesitant smile on his face. He looked older, more worn down than I remembered. "Tiffany," he said, his voice warm but cautious. "I understand you're angry. Your mother probably told you a lot of things about me." "Yeah, she did," I snapped. "How you were abusive, how you hit her." "How could you, Dad?" He took a deep breath. "Tiffany, what your mother told you is not true. I need you to listen to what really happened." For the next hour, Dad laid out a story that shook me to my core. He explained how Mom had deliberately provoked him, pushing his buttons until he was at his wit's end. The night I saw her on the floor, she had staged the whole thing. "Your mother took the police statement back in exchange for me not claiming any property in the divorce," Dad said, his voice heavy with pain. "She set me up, Tiffany. She wanted everything, and she got it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But why would Mom do that? And why didn't you fight back? Dad reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "Because of this," he said, pressing play on an audio file. Mom's voice filled the air between us, cold and calculating. "John, here's the deal. You leave quietly, sign over everything to me, and I'll drop the charges. Fight me on this, and I'll make sure everyone believes you're an abuser. Your choice." I felt sick. "Dad, why didn't you use this in court? You could have proved your innocence." He shook his head sadly. "It wouldn't have changed the outcome, Tiffany. Your mother had made up her mind. But more importantly, I didn't want to put you through any more pain. You were already dealing with so much in your teenage years. You need support, not more family drama." Tears welled up in my eyes. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I should have known. I should have trusted you." Dad reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'm sorry too. I know I worked too much when you were younger. I should have been there more." We sat in silence for a moment, both processing the weight of everything that had been said. Then, wiping my eyes, I remembered why I had originally reached out. "Dad, there's something else I need to tell you," I said, my voice shaky but determined. "Grandpa gave me the company for my 18th birthday." Dad's eyes widened in surprise, then crinkled with pride. "Tiffany, that's incredible. Your grandfather always had a good eye for potential. He must see great things in you." I felt a warmth spread through my chest at his words. "But Dad, I don't know the first thing about running a company. I need help." Without hesitation, Dad smiled. "I'd be honored to help you, free of charge. I'll guide you through everything you need to know." As we continued talking, making plans for the future, I felt a mix of emotions. Anger at Mom for her deception, sadness for what our family had lost, but also hope. Hope that with Dad's help and Grandpa's faith in me, maybe I could turn this unexpected gift into something amazing. The months flew by as I settled into my new life with Grandpa. Before I knew it, I was donning a cap and gown, graduating high school with honors. It felt surreal walking across that stage without Mom, Robert, or Tommy in the audience, but Grandpa's proud face and Dad's supportive presence made up for it. With graduation behind me, I threw myself into preparing for college. Thanks to my grades and extracurricular activities, I managed to secure a full scholarship. I decided to major in business management. After all, I had a company to run now. The day I got my acceptance letter, Grandpa insisted on throwing a little celebration. Just the two of us, some cake and a toast to the future. We were in the middle of our second slice when the doorbell rang. Grandpa frowned. "Were you expecting anyone?" I shook my head, equally confused. When Grandpa opened the door, I nearly dropped my plate. There stood Mom and Robert, looking as if they owned the place. Mom barely glanced at me. Her eyes were fixed on Grandpa, her expression stormy. "Dad, we need to talk." Now, without waiting for an invitation, she strode into the living room, Robert trailing behind her. I watched, stunned, as she rounded on Grandpa. "Why can't I access the company accounts?" she demanded. "And who gave you the right to block the capital transfer to our new subsidiary?" Grandpa stood his ground, his voice calm but firm. "Sarah, the company no longer belongs to you. It's Tiffany's now." Mom's jaw dropped. For a moment, she looked like a fish out of water. Then her eyes narrowed, darting between Grandpa and me. "What do you mean it's Tiffany's?" she hissed. "Exactly what I said," Grandpa replied. "I gave Tiffany the company for her 18th birthday. All decisions about its future and finances are hers to make now." The shock on Mom's face quickly gave way to a simpering smile as she turned to me. "Tiffany, sweetie, I've missed you so much. Why don't you come live with us? We've settled in so well in the new city." I blinked, taken aback by her sudden change in demeanor. "We have a lovely house," she continued, her voice honey-sweet. "There's a big bedroom just for you, with plenty of space for a desk and computer. You could study and work from home. Wouldn't that be nice?" I felt a twinge in my chest. Part of me, the part that still longed for my mom's approval, wanted to say yes. But then I thought of everything I'd learned, everything I'd built here. "Thanks, Mom, but no," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "I'm happy here. I have my friends, my life, and Grandpa. Besides, I start college soon." The tension in the room was palpable as I stood my ground against Mom's manipulations. Her sweet demeanor quickly soured when she realized I wasn't going to be swayed. "Fine," she snapped, her voice losing its sugary coating. "If you won't come to us, we'll move back here. We can all live in our old house, just like before. Wouldn't that be nice, Tiffany?" I shook my head, feeling a strange mix of sadness and determination. "No, Mom, that's not going to happen either." I could see the anger building in her eyes, her facade crumbling rapidly. It was now or never. "Mom," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "I want you to tell me the truth. What really happened between you and Dad? Why did you really get divorced?" For a split second, confusion flashed across Mom's face. Then, as if on cue, tears welled up in her eyes. "Oh, Tiffany," she sobbed. "Your father, he was so cruel. He insulted me. He even hit me. I had to leave to protect myself, to protect you and Tommy." I felt a surge of anger at her lies. "Stop it, Mom. I know what really happened. I know you framed Dad. You set him up so you could divorce him and take everything for yourself." The tears vanished from Mom's eyes in an instant, replaced by a cold fury I'd never seen before. "How dare you?" she hissed. "You ungrateful child. You have no right to meddle in my personal life." She turned to Grandpa, her voice rising. "Everything here belongs to me. I decide who lives where and who gets what." Then she rounded on me again. "You will come home right now, Tiffany, and you will hand over that company to me where it belongs." I stood there, shocked by the venom in her voice, when Grandpa stepped forward. His face was a storm of disappointment and anger. "That's enough, Sarah," he said, his voice low but powerful. "You seem to have forgotten a few important details. This property, including your old house, belongs to me, not you. And the company now belongs to Tiffany. I gave it to her, and it's hers to do with as she sees fit." Mom's face went pale, then red with rage. She opened her mouth to argue, but Grandpa cut her off. "I've heard enough," he said firmly. "I'm ashamed of you, Sarah. I raised you better than this. Now I think it's time for you and Robert to leave. You can't kick us out." Mom shrieked. "I'm your daughter." Grandpa's expression was stone. "And Tiffany is my granddaughter. A granddaughter who has shown more integrity and strength in the past few months than you have in years. Now leave, both of you." I watched a mix of emotions swirling inside me as Grandpa ushered Mom and Robert to the door. Mom's face was a mask of fury and disbelief as the door closed behind them. As the sound of their car engine faded away, I sank onto the couch, feeling drained. Grandpa sat beside me, putting a comforting arm around my shoulders. As we sat there in silence, I couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. The confrontation with Mom had been explosive, but somehow I knew it wasn't over. This was just the beginning of a new chapter in our complicated family saga. The morning after Mom and Robert's dramatic exit, I woke to the sound of hushed voices downstairs. Curiosity getting the better of me, I crept down to find Grandpa and Dad in deep conversation in the study. "Tiffany," Dad said, noticing me first, "come in, sweetheart." We were just talking about you and Tommy when I entered the room, my confusion evident. "What about Tommy?" Grandpa cleared his throat. "I've asked your father if he'd be willing to seek custody of Tommy." My eyes widened. Really? But how? Dad nodded, a mix of determination and hope in his eyes. "Your grandfather thinks we have a strong case, especially with what he's discovered." Grandpa reached for a thick folder on his desk. "Tiffany, sit down. There's something you need to see." With trembling hands, I opened the folder. Inside was a detailed report from a private investigator. As I read, I felt my world tilt on its axis once again. "Mom was cheating on you." I looked at Dad, horrified. "With Robert for years," Dad nodded grimly. "It seems so." Grandpa pointed to several documents, hotel receipts, gift records, old text messages. "Your mother and Robert had been carrying on an affair long before the divorce." "But how did the investigator get all this information?" I asked, bewildered. Grandpa's eyes narrowed. Robert made a crucial mistake. He threw away his old phone when he bought a new one. Our investigator managed to recover it, and it was a goldmine of information. I felt sick. But why all the theatrics with the divorce then? Why accuse Dad of abuse? "It was Robert's idea," Grandpa explained, his voice heavy. "According to their messages on that old phone, he suggested she frame your father for domestic violence. It was all a ploy to ensure she got everything in the divorce." Tears stung my eyes, but Grandpa wasn't finished. "There's more," he said, turning to another section of the report. "That same phone revealed Robert's true nature. He's not who he claims to be. He's a con man, Tiffany. The phone had messages with other women. He targets wealthy women, marries them, and then disappears with their money." The pieces suddenly fell into place. That's why he was so keen on moving the company and transferring all the capital. I gasped. He was planning to steal it all along. Grandpa nodded gravely. "Exactly. And there's one more thing you should know. I met with your mother and showed her all this evidence, but she refused to believe it. She's in deep denial about Robert's true nature and his intentions." I sat back, my mind reeling. What do we do now? "We fight," Dad said firmly. "For Tommy, for the company, for the truth." Grandpa nodded in agreement. "I've already called my lawyer. We're going to file for custody of Tommy and take steps to protect the company's assets." The next few months were a whirlwind of legal battles and emotional turmoil. Dad fought tirelessly for custody of Tommy. I stood by them every step of the way, determined to bring my little brother home. The courtroom was tense as Mom tried to paint Dad as a monster, spinning tales of abuse and neglect. But her lies crumbled in the face of the mountain of evidence we had gathered. The judge listened intently as our lawyer presented the detective's findings, the recovered phone messages, the proof of Mom's affair, and the elaborate scheme she and Robert had concocted to frame Dad. I will never forget the expression on Mom's face when Dad was given full custody by the judge. It was a mixture of surprise, rage, and something else entirely. Maybe the first glimmer of recognition that her meticulously built world was coming apart. Not long afterward came the last blow. Robert revealed his true colors when he realized that Mom was now alone, without a place to live, and responsible for paying child support. Overnight, he vanished, taking off with another lady, leaving Mom with nothing but the fallout from her deeds. Mom made a frantic attempt to make amends with Dad. She came back to our old house, our home, and I was there, tears running down her cheeks as she pleaded for forgiveness. Dad, though, did not waver. With a firm voice, he apologized to Sarah. However, too much has transpired. You have my whole faith. Kindly depart. I felt a chapter of our life closing as the door closed on Mom's beseeching face. It was agonizing, yet liberating in an odd way. After then, life found its new rhythm. I immersed myself into my undergraduate coursework with the goal of becoming an expert in business management. I would devour corporate reports with my father in between lectures, learning from his wealth of experience and expertise. In order to give me time to learn the ropes without the strain of complete responsibility, he volunteered to operate the business until I graduated. Tommy flourished under Dad's care, even though he was still too little to properly comprehend everything that had transpired. Seeing them mend their connection was heartening. I saw the joy in Tommy's eyes when his father got home from work, or when we spent Friday evenings playing board games together. Being only a few blocks away, Grandpa was someone we visited frequently. Sunday meals developed into a much-loved custom. We were all four seated around his large oak table, laughing and telling each other tales. Grandpa would enthrall us with stories of his early years of founding the business, his eyes sparkling as he observed me taking in every nuance. I can't help but notice how much has changed as I sit here in my childhood bedroom, which seems like home again. We came to this point via a difficult and terrible journey filled with betrayals and harsh realities. However, it also resulted in the reconstruction of a family that was closer and stronger than before. I am aware that difficulties are ahead. It takes a lot of work to run a business, and our family turmoil will probably continue to have an impact for years to come. However, I'm not scared. At my side are Dad, Tommy, and Grandpa, and I feel prepared for whatever is ahead.
The phone rings at 3 in the morning, and I already know it's bad news. No one calls at this hour to share their joy. "Grandma?" Emma's voice cracks through the speaker. "I need you." My heart pounds against my ribs as I sit up in bed. Liam stirs beside me, his hand reaching for mine in the darkness. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "I'm pregnant." 2 words. Just 2 simple words, and suddenly I'm back in that sterile hospital room, watching my daughter Olivia slip away while a newborn Emma wailed in the nursery. The memory hits me like a physical blow, stealing my breath. "Where are you?" I managed to ask, already swinging my legs over the side of the bed. "At home. Ryan's... He's not here. He stormed out when I told him." Of course he did. That worthless boy, always chasing his dreams of becoming the next big DJ sensation, leaving my granddaughter to deal with this alone. I'm Sierra Thompson, and I've spent the last 18 years raising Emma after losing my only daughter. I won't let history repeat itself. "Stay where you are. We're coming over." Liam's already dressed by the time I hang up. He knows. He always knows. "That punk Ryan better pray I don't find him first," he mutters, grabbing his car keys. The drive to Emma's apartment is silent, heavy with unspoken fears. We find her curled up on her couch, looking so young and vulnerable it makes my chest ache. Her mascara has left dark trails down her cheeks, and she's clutching her phone like a lifeline. "He said he's not ready," she whispers as I pull her into my arms. Said his career is just taking off, that a baby would ruin everything. Liam's jaw tightens. That boy works for me now. He'd better start thinking about his responsibilities. Daddy offered him that job 3 months ago, Emma explains to me, hiccuping through her tears. Ryan's been showing up late, leaving early, says the construction work is just temporary until he gets his big break. I stroke her hair, but my mind is already racing ahead, plotting and planning. We'll figure this out, baby girl. You're not alone. I'm scared, she admits, her hand drifting to her still flat stomach. What if something happens like with Mom? The question hangs in the air like poison. Liam turns away, but not before I catch the shimmer in his eyes. We've never fully recovered from losing Olivia. How could we? Nothing's going to happen to you, I say firmly, even as my own fear threatens to choke me. We're here. We'll take care of everything. My phone buzzes. A text from Jenna Carter, Ryan's mother. Just heard from Ryan. He's at some club downtown. I'm so sorry, Sierra. I don't know what's wrong with that boy anymore. I show the message to Liam, watching his expression darken. He owns Thompson Builders, the largest construction company in town. One word from him, and Ryan's future in this city could vanish like morning dew. Let me handle Ryan, Liam says quietly. I'll make sure he understands what's at stake. But I'm already forming my own plans. Ryan Carter thinks he can abandon my granddaughter, leave her to face this alone. He has no idea what I'm capable of. I made a promise over Olivia's grave to protect Emma, and I intend to keep it, no matter the cost. Emma finally drifts off to sleep on the couch, exhausted from crying. As I cover her with a blanket, my phone lights up again. Another text from Jenna. Ryan's booking a flight to Miami. Says there's some big music festival he can't miss. I look at my sleeping granddaughter, so much like her mother it hurts, and feel something cold and hard settle in my chest. Ryan Carter is about to learn that some decisions have consequences that last a lifetime. A week passes, and Emma moves back home with us. I watch her unpacking her things, fitting her life back into her childhood bedroom, and my anger toward Ryan grows with each passing hour. He's coming over today, Emma announces at breakfast, pushing her untouched toast around her plate. Says he wants to talk about everything. Liam's coffee cup hits the saucer with a sharp crack. About time that boy showed his face. Please don't start, Grandpa, Emma pleads. He's trying. I bite my tongue until I taste copper. Trying? Running off to Miami for a week while your pregnant girlfriend cries herself to sleep isn't trying. But I promised Emma I'd give him a chance, so I force a smile and clear the dishes. The doorbell rings at noon. Ryan stands on our porch in a designer t-shirt that probably cost more than a week's salary at Thompson Builders. His eyes are bloodshot and there's glitter still stuck to his neck from whatever club he crawled out of. Mrs. Thompson, he nods, trying to slide past me. I plant myself firmly in the doorway. Emma's resting. You can talk to her in the living room. Liam's already there, sitting in his armchair like a judge presiding over court. Ryan's confidence wavers as he takes a seat on the edge of the couch. Emma, I call upstairs. Ryan's here. She comes down slowly, one hand unconsciously resting on her stomach. The sight makes Ryan shift uncomfortably. Baby, I've been thinking, he starts, and I have to grip the back of Liam's chair to keep from interrupting. This timing, it's not great. I've got this huge opportunity coming up. This producer in Miami wants to sign me for a residency at his club. Emma's face crumples. What about the job at Thompson Builders? That was temporary, you knew that. This is my real chance, Emma. I could make it big. And the baby? Liam's voice cuts through the room like a blade. Is that temporary too? Ryan runs his hands through his styled hair. Look, I'll send money when I can, but I can't be tied down right now. My career. Your career? I step forward and Ryan actually flinches. You mean playing other people's music in dark rooms while drunk college kids dance? That's more important than your child? Grandma, please, Emma whispers, but I'm beyond stopping now. You want to know what a real career looks like? I gesture to Liam. 30 years building a company from nothing, supporting his family, being there when... My voice catches, memories of Olivia threatening to overwhelm me. Ryan stands up, defensive. I'm not trying to be like Mr. Thompson. This is different. Emma, you understand, right? We're young. We've got our whole lives ahead of us. No, Emma says quietly, and we all turn to look at her. I don't understand. This baby is coming, whether you're ready or not. I thought you loved me enough to at least try. I do love you. That's why I'm being honest instead of making promises I can't keep. A bitter laugh escapes me. Honest? Was it honest when you told Liam you'd take the job seriously? When you promised Emma you'd always be there for her? Ryan's face darkens. With all due respect, Mrs. Thompson, this is between me and Emma. Nothing about my granddaughter is just between you and her, I snap. Not anymore. Not after what happened to her mother. Sierra, Liam warns, but the words are already out. Emma stands up suddenly. I can't do this right now. I need some air. She rushes out the back door and Ryan moves to follow her. Liam rises from his chair, blocking his path. Sit down, son. We need to have a serious discussion about your future at Thompson Builders. I leave them there, following Emma into the garden. She's standing by Olivia's rose bushes, tears streaming down her face. I really thought he'd change, she whispers as I approach. I thought when he came back, he'd realize what matters. I wrap my arms around her, feeling her shoulders shake with silent sobs. Through the window, I can see Ryan gesturing angrily at Liam, his face red with indignation. Something cold and calculated settles in my chest as I watch him. Don't worry, sweetheart, I murmur into Emma's hair. Everything's going to work out exactly the way it should. And I know exactly how to make that happen. The neon sign of the underground pulses against the night sky as I sit in my car, watching. 3 hours I've been here, waiting for proof of what Jenna Carter told me this morning. He's supposed to be at work, she'd said, voice cracking. But I found these flyers in his room. He's been doing secret DJ sets when he should be at the construction site. The side door opens, and there he is. Ryan Carter, who should be handling inventory at Thompson Builders, is instead loading equipment into a beaten-up van. My fingers tighten around my phone, already recording. The timestamp will be perfect evidence for Liam. A girl in a crop top follows him out, laughing as she hands him something that glints in the streetlight. Cash. My jaw clenches so hard it hurts. Emma's at home right now, suffering through morning sickness that lasts all day, while this worthless boy plays his games and collects under-the-table money. I step out of my car, heels clicking against the pavement. Ryan freezes when he spots me, guilt flashing across his face before it hardens into defiance. Mrs. Thompson, he says, trying to sound casual. What brings you here? Funny. I was about to ask you the same thing. Liam's been wondering why the inventory counts keep coming up short. The girl looks between us, sensing tension. I should go, she mumbles, retreating inside. You following me now? Ryan's voice has an edge. That's kind of crazy, don't you think? Crazy as lying to your pregnant girlfriend while you chase pipe dreams in dirty clubs. I hold up my phone. Should we show Emma this video? Or should we start with Liam? His face darkens. You don't understand. This gig paid more than I make in 2 weeks at Thompson Builders. I'm doing this for Emma, for the baby. By stealing time from your job? By lying? I'm not stealing anything. I'm building my future. The club owner wants me to open for some big names next month. This could be my break. I laugh, and it sounds bitter even to my ears. Your break? While Emma can barely keep food down? While she cries herself to sleep wondering if you'll ever grow up? Don't pretend you know what's best for Emma, he snarls, stepping closer. You're so caught up in your grief over her mother that you can't see you're suffocating her. Emma understands my dreams. She supports me. The mention of Olivia hits like a physical blow. You don't get to speak about my daughter. You don't get to use her name while you're out here destroying everything we've built for Emma. Built for her or built to control her? His words drip with venom. Maybe if you hadn't kept her so sheltered, she'd understand there's more to life than following your rules. Something snaps inside me. Rules? You think protecting her is about rules? My daughter died bringing Emma into this world, and I promised her... My voice breaks, but anger pushes me forward. I promised her Emma would have a good life, a safe life, not this mess you're creating. The only mess here is you, Mrs. Thompson, living in the past, trying to control everyone because you couldn't control what happened to Olivia. The sound of my palm striking his face echoes in the empty parking lot. We both stand there, shocked by the sudden violence. You have one chance, I say, my voice deadly quiet. One chance to make this right. Come clean to Liam tomorrow, apologize to Emma, and commit to your responsibilities. Or I'll make sure you never work in this town again, in construction or clubs. Ryan rubs his cheek, eyes burning with hatred. You know what? Do your worst. Emma will see you for what you really are, a bitter old woman who can't let go. And when she does, you'll lose her too. He climbs into his van and peels out of the parking lot, leaving me standing there with my hand still stinging. My phone buzzes, a text from Emma. Where are you? Ryan's not answering his phone and I'm not feeling well. I look at the club's neon sign, then at the video I've recorded. Ryan thinks I'm bluffing about destroying his chances in this town. He has no idea what I'm capable of, what lengths I'll go to protect my family. On my way home, sweetheart, I text back. Then I make another call. Jenna, we need to talk about your son, and this time we're going to do more than just worry. Jenna Carter's kitchen smells like burnt coffee and regret. She hasn't stopped crying since I showed her the video of Ryan at the underground, mascara creating dark rivers down her weathered face. I found these too, she says, sliding a stack of papers across the table. Credit card statements all maxed out in Ryan's name. He used my address to apply for them. I had no idea until the collection calls started. My hands shake as I flip through the charges. Airline tickets, DJ equipment, hotel rooms, thousands of dollars of debt, all while he's been telling Emma he's saving for their future. There's more, Jenna whispers, and something in her voice makes me look up. The producer in Miami, he's not real. Ryan's been lying about everything. He paid some guy to pose as a talent scout at his shows. The revelation hits me like a physical blow. Does Emma know? Ryan swore me to secrecy, said he just needed time to make it big, then he'd pay everything back. Jenna's laugh is hollow. I wanted to believe him. Every mother wants to believe in their child. I think of Olivia, of all the dreams I had for her that died in that hospital room. Sometimes believing isn't enough. My phone buzzes, a text from Emma. Grandma, please come home. Something's wrong. Fear grips my chest as I stand, already reaching for my keys. I have to go. Sierra? Jenna catches my arm, her eyes desperate. Whatever you're planning, remember Ryan's still my son. I meet her gaze. And Emma's still my granddaughter. I find Emma curled up on the bathroom floor, pale and shaking. The sight sends me straight back to Olivia's final days, and for a moment I can't breathe. The doctor said it's just severe morning sickness, Emma manages between heaving breaths. But Ryan won't answer his phone. I needed him, and he won't answer. I help her to bed, rage building with every whimper of pain. Once she's settled, I check her phone. Dozens of unanswered messages to Ryan, while his social media shows him setting up for another club night. Liam appears in the doorway, his face grim. Just got a call from the site manager. Ryan hasn't shown up for work in 3 days. I know where he is, I say, showing him the social media posts. And I know what he's been hiding. We step into the hallway and I tell him everything. The credit cards, the fake producer, the lies. With each revelation, Liam's expression darkens. I'll fire him first thing tomorrow, he growls. No, I say, surprising myself. Not yet. I have a better idea. Sierra? There's a warning in his voice. He knows me too well. Trust me, I whisper, just as Emma calls out from her room. We find her sitting up in bed, staring at her phone in disbelief. Ryan just posted that he's quitting Thompson Builders. Says he's moving to Miami next week to start his music career. Her voice cracks. He didn't even tell me. I sit beside her, taking her trembling hands in mine. There's something you need to know about Miami, sweetheart. But before I can continue, Emma's phone lights up with a call from Ryan. She answers on speaker, her voice small and hurt. Were you going to tell me? Baby, this is my chance. His words slur slightly. He's been drinking. come with me. We can start fresh, away from your grandparents' control. I feel Emma stiffen beside me. What about the baby? We can figure that out later. This producer, he's offering me everything I've dreamed of. There is no producer, I say loudly, unable to stay silent. Tell her the truth, Ryan. Tell her about the credit cards, the lies. The line goes quiet for a long moment. Then Ryan laughs, a cold sound I've never heard from him before. You just couldn't help yourself, could you, Mrs. Thompson? Had to stick your nose where it doesn't belong. Ryan, Emma's voice trembles. What is she talking about? Ask your grandmother about control, he spits. Ask her why she really keeps you so close. It's not about protecting you. It's about replacing your mother. The words hang in the air like poison. Emma looks at me, questions and accusations warring in her eyes, and I realize this fight for her future just became much more complicated than I imagined. The contractions start at midnight. I'm awakened by Emma's scream, a sound that tears through 18 years of carefully constructed walls and drops me right back into that hospital room with Olivia. Something's wrong, Emma gasps when I reach her bedroom. It's too early. My hands shake as I help her to the car. Liam's already calling ahead to the hospital, his voice steady but his face ashen. We've been here before. We know how this story can end. Call Ryan, Emma pleads between contractions. Please, Grandma. He needs to know. I grip the steering wheel harder, remembering the social media posts from earlier. Ryan's latest update showed him at some music festival in Miami, his arms around two girls in bikinis. The timestamp was just 3 hours ago. But I make the call anyway because Emma's asking, because she's scared, because she's so much like her mother, it hurts. Voicemail. Of course. Ryan, Emma's in labor. She needs you. Get on the next flight home. I pause, swallowing my pride. Please. The emergency room is a blur of activity. Emma's blood pressure is too high, the baby's heartbeat too low. Everything's happening too fast, just like before. Mrs. Thompson? A nurse touches my arm. We need your granddaughter's medical history. And the father's? I'm handling it, I snap, but my hands won't stop shaking as I fill out the forms. Every beep of the monitors sends another crack through my composure. My phone buzzes. A text from Ryan. Can't leave now. Biggest show of my career tonight. Tell Emma I'm sorry. The phone crashes against the wall before I realize I've thrown it. A nurse jumps, startled, but I'm already moving, pushing through the doors to Emma's room where she's crying, asking for Ryan. He's not coming, is he? She reads it on my face. He's really not coming. Emma, sweetheart. Don't. She turns away, tears mixing with sweat. You were right about him. You were right about everything. The monitors start screaming. Doctors rush in, shouting terms that sound too familiar. Preeclampsia, emergency C-section, the same words they used with Olivia. No, I whisper, but they're already wheeling Emma away. No, not again. Please, not again. Liam catches me as my knees buckle. This time is different, he says firmly. Emma is stronger. We know what to watch for. My phone lies shattered on the floor, but Liam's still works. I grab it, dialing Jenna's number. Where is he? I demand when she answers. Where exactly is your son? Sierra, please. Your son is about to lose everything. His girlfriend, his child, maybe both. Just like I lost Olivia. Tell me where he is. There's a long pause. The Ultra Music Festival. He's opening for some DJ at midnight. I check the time, 11:45 p.m. What stage? Sierra, what are you planning? The same thing you should have done years ago. I'm going to make him face reality. I hang up and turn to Liam. Stay with Emma. I need to make some calls. Sierra, I promised Olivia I'd protect her daughter. I failed her once by letting that boy into Emma's life. I won't fail her again. I step into the hallway, pulling up contacts I haven't used in years. Old friends who owe favors. People who know people. One call to the festival's security chief, who still remembers when I helped his daughter years ago. Another to a local news station that loves scandal. A final call to the Miami police about those credit card fraud charges Jenna discovered. By midnight, Ryan Carter's big break will become his biggest nightmare. But as I hit dial on the first number, Emma's monitor alarms start blaring again, and a doctor rushes past me shouting orders. For a moment, I freeze. Is this revenge worth the cost? Am I doing this for Emma, for Olivia, or for myself? Then I hear Emma cry out for her mother, and my resolve hardens. Some choices can't be undone, but some consequences can't be avoided either. I press send, and the wheels of destruction begin to turn. The surgery takes 6 hours. I pace the waiting room like a caged animal, watching Miami news feeds on my phone as Ryan's world implodes in real time. Security footage of him being escorted off stage. Police waiting in the wings. His face splashed across local news as credit card fraud charges break. It should feel like victory. Instead, all I can think about is Emma's last conscious words before they wheeled her into surgery. "Mom, I'm scared." She wasn't calling for me. She was calling for Olivia. "Sierra!" Liam's voice cuts through my thoughts. He's standing in the doorway, his face unreadable. "Emma's out of surgery." "The baby?" His silence tells me everything. The NICU is too quiet, too sterile. Emma's daughter, my great-granddaughter, lies in an incubator, smaller than any baby should be. Tubes and wires make her look like a science experiment rather than a newborn. 20% chance, the doctor had said. The next 48 hours are critical. My phone buzzes, a text from Jenna. "They're holding Ryan without bail. What have you done?" What have I done? I look at this tiny baby fighting for life, at Emma unconscious in recovery, and suddenly my carefully orchestrated revenge feels hollow. "Mrs. Thompson?" A nurse appears with paperwork. "We need the baby's name for the birth certificate. Her mother's not awake to—" Given the circumstances, we need it now, for the records. I stare at the form, pen hovering over the blank space. In my mind, I hear Emma calling for her mother, see Olivia's face the day she told me she was pregnant, feel the weight of 18 years of guilt and grief and rage. The nurse clears her throat. "Mrs. Thompson?" "Olivia," I write, then immediately scratch it out. My hand shakes as I realize what I've almost done. I'm doing exactly what Ryan accused me of, trying to replace one loss with another. "I can't," I tell the nurse, pushing the form away. "We have to wait for her mother." My phone rings. It's the Miami police detective wanting a statement about the credit card fraud. I send it to voicemail. Another call. The local news station, hungry for more details about the disgraced young DJ whose girlfriend is fighting for life while he sits in jail. "You should eat something," Liam says, appearing beside me. "You've been here 12 hours. I can't leave them." "Sierra." He takes my hand, forces me to look at him. "This isn't Olivia. What happened then? It's not happening again. Isn't it? Emma's unconscious? The baby might not make it? And I'm standing here just as useless as I was 18 years ago." "You're not useless. I'm what? A vengeful old woman who sent her granddaughter's boyfriend to jail while she was in surgery? Who almost named her great-granddaughter after her dead mother because I can't let go?" The monitors on the baby's incubator start beeping. Medical staff rush in, and we're pushed aside, forced to watch through glass as they work to keep this tiny life from slipping away. My phone buzzes again. A text from an unknown number, Ryan using his one phone call. "I hope you're happy now. You've destroyed everything." And suddenly I realize he's right. In my quest for revenge, in my desperate need to protect Emma from suffering Olivia's fate, I've become exactly what I feared. Someone who hurts others to avoid their own pain. The beeping stabilizes. The baby lives for now. But as I watch her tiny chest rise and fall, I understand that this was never about protecting Emma or honoring Olivia's memory. It was about me, trying to control what I couldn't bear to lose again. "I need to fix this," I whisper. "How?" Liam asks. Before I can answer, a nurse rushes out of Emma's room. "She's waking up," she says, "and she's asking for Ryan." The weight of what I've done crashes over me like a wave. I've spent so much time fighting to prevent history from repeating itself that I never stopped to consider I might be the one making the same mistakes, just in a different way. Now I have to face Emma and tell her what I've done, and this time there's no one to blame but myself. The Miami-Dade detention center smells like industrial cleaner and despair. I sit across from Ryan, separated by scratched plexiglass, and for the first time, I see him clearly. Not as the villain I've made him out to be, but as someone's child, barely older than Emma. "Your daughter's fighting for her life," I say into the phone receiver, "while you're in here because of what I did." He leans forward, eyes bloodshot. "Finally admitting it? That you set me up?" "I made the calls, yes. But you set yourself up, Ryan. The credit card fraud, the lies about the producer. I did what I had to do to chase my dreams. At least I'm honest about who I am." He presses his palm against the glass. "What's your excuse?" Before I can answer, a guard approaches with paperwork. "Carter, your bail's been posted." We both stare in surprise. Through the visiting room window, I see Liam talking to a clerk. "Why?" Ryan asks, suspicious. "Because Emma needs to see you, and you need to see your daughter." The drive back to the hospital is tense. Ryan sits in the back seat, still wearing his festival wristbands. I catch his reflection in the rearview mirror. He looks terrified. "She's small," I warn him. "Smaller than you're expecting, and there are lots of tubes." "I can't do this," he blurts out. I'm not ready to be someone's father." Liam pulls the car over so suddenly we all lurch forward. "Neither was I," he says, turning to face Ryan. "When Olivia told us she was pregnant with Emma, I was terrified. But you know what? Being ready doesn't matter. Being there does." The NICU is quiet when we arrive. Emma's awake, sitting in a wheelchair beside the incubator. She doesn't look up when we enter. "Emma," Ryan starts, but she cuts him off. "Don't." Her voice is raw. "I don't want your excuses. I want you to look at her. Really look at her." Ryan steps closer to the incubator, and I see the moment it hits him, the reality of this tiny life he helped create. His hands shake as he reaches toward the glass. "She needs a name," Emma says quietly. "I've been waiting, hoping you'd want to be part of that decision." The silence stretches. Ryan presses his forehead against the incubator, shoulders shaking. When he finally turns around, there are tears on his face. "I can't give her what she needs," he whispers. "I can't give either of you what you need. I thought I could fake it until things worked out, but seeing her like this..." Ryan: "No, Emma, listen. Your grandmother was right about me. I'm not ready for this life, and pretending I am would only hurt you both more." I step forward, guilt crushing my chest. "Ryan, I was wrong too. What I did was protect your family," he finishes. "I get it now. I really do." He turns back to Emma. "Name her whatever you want. She deserves better than what I can give her." Emma's face crumples, but there's relief mixed with the pain. "I think I've always known," she admits. "I just needed you to say it." Ryan nods, then pulls something from his pocket, his hospital ID bracelet from when he was born. Maybe give this to her? So she knows I existed, that I saw her, even if I couldn't stay." He walks out without looking back. Through the window, we watch him hand his visitor's badge to the nurse, shoulders straight, but head down. "I'm sorry," I tell Emma, though the words feel inadequate. "I thought I was protecting you, but I just made everything worse." "No," Emma says, surprising me. "You forced us all to face the truth, even if your methods were extreme." A ghost of a smile crosses her face. "You're just like Mom that way." The baby stirs in her incubator, tiny fingers flexing. Emma reaches through the port to touch her daughter's hand. "Hope," she says suddenly. "Her name is Hope Thompson, because that's what she gave me. Hope that I'm stronger than I thought I was." I look at my granddaughter, seeing not just echoes of Olivia now, but something entirely new and resilient. And I realize that sometimes protecting someone means letting them find their own way through the pain. Hope comes home on a quiet Tuesday morning. The doctors call it a miracle. I call it Thompson's stubbornness. She's tiny but fierce, just like her mother, just like Olivia. Emma insists on carrying her through the front door herself, though her C-section scar still pulls when she walks. I hover behind her, hands ready to catch them both, until she gives me a look so much like Olivia's that I have to step back. "I've got this, Grandma," she says softly. "You don't have to carry everything anymore." The nursery we've prepared isn't the one Emma and Ryan painted together months ago. That room, with its half-finished music note border, remains closed. Instead, we've converted my sewing room, the one where I used to sit and stare at Olivia's old photos when the grief felt too heavy. As Emma settles Hope into her crib, the doorbell rings. Through the window, I see Jenna Carter standing on our porch, clutching a small package. "I won't stay," she says when I open the door. "Ryan asked me to bring this before he leaves for California." The package contains a USB drive and a handwritten letter. My hands shake as I read it. "What is it?" Emma asks, appearing behind me. "His first real song," I say, scanning the letter. "He wrote it for Hope. Says he wants her to know he chose to leave because staying halfway wasn't enough, for any of you." Emma takes the USB drive, turning it over in her hands. "Did we do the right thing, letting him go?" Before I can answer, Hope's cry echoes through the baby monitor. Emma straightens, instinct already kicking in. "Would you mind," she asks Jenna, "coming up to meet your granddaughter?" Jenna's eyes fill with tears. "I didn't think, after everything—" "She should know all her family," Emma says firmly, "even the complicated parts." I watch them climb the stairs together, these two women bound by circumstance and choice, and realize something about protection I never understood before. Sometimes it means stepping back, letting others forge their own connections, even if they're different from what you imagined. Later that night, I find Emma in Olivia's old room, Hope asleep against her chest while Ryan's song plays softly from her phone. It's surprisingly good, a gentle melody about choices and consequences, about loving something enough to let it go. "Mom would have handled this better," Emma whispers, tracing Hope's tiny features. "She wouldn't have tried to control everything like we did." "No," I admit, sitting beside them. "She would have trusted love to find its own way. Even when it hurt, even when it meant watching people make mistakes." "Is that why you kept her hospital bracelet? The one she wore when she had me?" I freeze. I've never told anyone about the bracelet tucked away in my jewelry box, saved from the day we lost Olivia and gained Emma. "How did you—" "Found it years ago," Emma says. "That's why I kept Ryan's. Not for Hope, really. For me. To remember that sometimes loving someone means accepting when they can't stay." Hope stirs, her tiny hand wrapping around Emma's finger. In the soft lamplight, I see 3 generations of Thompson women reflected in their faces. Olivia's strength, Emma's resilience, Hope's future stretching out before her. "I've been thinking," Emma says suddenly, "about taking some college classes. Online at first, while Hope's small. Maybe business courses." "Business?" She nods. "Thompson Builders will need new leadership someday, and I want Hope to see that her mother built something too, even if her father had to leave to find his path." I think about revenge then, about how I thought destroying Ryan would somehow protect Emma from pain. But here she sits, stronger for having faced that pain herself, making choices I never would have imagined. "Your mother would be so proud," I whisper, but Emma shakes her head. "She'd be proud of all of us," she corrects me, "for learning to love without trying to control the outcome." Hope sighs in her sleep, and Ryan's song fades to silence. Outside, the world continues turning, full of possibilities we can't predict or protect against. But in this moment, watching my granddaughter hold her daughter, I finally understand what Olivia tried to teach me. True protection isn't about preventing pain. It's about being there to witness the healing.
Walking into Sarah's kitchen felt like stepping into a warm hug. The smell of roasted chicken mingled with laughter and chatter, creating a cozy atmosphere that immediately put me at ease. I was a bit of a hermit, preferring my books and lesson plans over social gatherings. But Sarah had a way of drawing me out of my shell. "Emily, you made it," Sarah exclaimed, her voice a beacon in the bustling room. She dashed over, enveloping me in a tight hug that squeezed the breath out of me for a second. "I thought you'd bail last minute," I laughed, shaking my head. "Never." Sarah was the kind of friend everyone needed, straightforward with a non-nonsense attitude that was as refreshing as it was intimidating at times. Her husband, Mark, was the quieter counterpart. A gentle giant, with a knack for listening that balanced Sarah's fiery spirit perfectly. As guests mingled, sipping on wine and nibbling on appetizers, I noticed a man I hadn't seen before. He stood out, not just because of his sharp suit that screamed "I mean business," but there was an air about him that caught my attention. He was chatting with Mark, but his gaze wandered, eventually locking with mine. "That's Michael," Sarah whispered, sidling up to me. "Quite the catch, huh?" I raised an eyebrow, and Sarah's grin was mischievous. "Let's just say I might have played matchmaker tonight." Before I could protest, Sarah was dragging me across the room, my heart hammering in my chest. "Michael, this is Emily, the friend I've been telling you about. Emily, meet Michael, the city's most eligible bachelor." Michael extended his hand, his grip firm but gentle. "Pleasure to meet you, Emily." His voice was smooth with a confidence that made my knees wobble a bit. "Likewise," I managed to say, hoping my nervousness wasn't too obvious. Dinner was served, and conversations flowed as freely as the wine. Michael was easy to talk to, sharing stories of his travels and business ventures that sounded like they were from another world compared to my quiet life as a teacher. "So Emily, Sarah tells me you're shaping young minds. That must be rewarding," Michael said, his eyes twinkling with genuine interest. I shrugged, feeling a blush creep up my cheeks. "It's more like herding cats, but yeah, it has its moments." Michael laughed, a sound that made my heart flutter. "I can only imagine. It takes a special kind of person to do what you do." The evening flew by in a blur of laughter and shared stories. As the night wound down, Michael offered to walk me to my car, a gesture I found charmingly old-fashioned. Standing beside my car, the cool night air felt electric between us. I had a great time tonight, Emily," Michael said, his smile sending a wave of warmth through me. "Yeah, I'd like that," I replied, the smile on my face feeling permanent. Driving home, I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was the start of something new. Little did I know that dinner at Sarah's wasn't just a simple gathering. Waking up to the chirping birds outside our bedroom window, I stretched, still marveling at the reality of my new life. Married to Michael, living in a house that seemed straight out of a magazine. It was a far cry from my cozy, somewhat cluttered apartment back in the city. The smell of coffee wafted up, pulling me out of bed and downstairs where Michael was already up, looking every bit the successful businessman, even in his casual morning attire. "Morning beautiful," he greeted, his smile bright. "Coffee? Yeah, thanks," I mumbled, still rubbing the sleep from my eyes. Taking the mug, I sipped the strong brew, letting it chase away the remnants of sleep. "So, what's on the agenda today?" Michael asked, his tone casual as he glanced over his phone. I shrugged. "Thought I'd unpack some more boxes, maybe explore the neighborhood a bit." Michael nodded, his attention half on me, half on the emails he was scrolling through. "Sounds good. I've got meetings back to back today, won't be home till late." This had become the norm since we moved in. His presence, once constant and comforting during our courtship, had become more like a guest appearance in our home. I brushed off the nagging feeling of loneliness, chalking it up to the adjustment period of marriage. That evening, when Michael finally came home, I decided to approach the subject. "Hey, can we talk?" I asked as he loosened his tie, looking exhausted. "Sure, what's up?" he said, sitting down on the sofa. "It's just, I feel like we're ships passing in the night lately." "I miss us," I admitted, feeling a lump in my throat. Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. You know how it is, the business, it's demanding. I'm doing this for us." "I know I do, but maybe we could set aside some time just for us, A date night or something, I suggested, hopeful. He looked at me for a long moment before nodding. You're right, I'm sorry, Em. Let's do that. How about Friday night, dinner at that Italian place you love? A smile broke through my worries. I'd like that. As we settled into a comfortable silence, me curled up with a book, and Michael with his laptop, I couldn't help but feel that this was just a hurdle we'd overcome together. After our quiet moment of reconciliation, the days started to blend into one another. Michael tried to make time for us, scheduling those promised date nights, but his phone was always buzzing, pulling him back into the world of work. I found solace in setting up our home, making it ours, filling it with warmth and love, hoping it would bridge the gap that his absence created. One evening, as we sat on the back porch watching the sunset, a rare moment when his phone was silent, I decided it was the right time to bring up the topic that had been weighing on my heart. Michael, have you thought about us having kids? I ventured, my voice shaky with nerves. He looked at me, surprise flickering across his face before it settled into a contemplative frown. Kids, Em? You know how chaotic things are right now. I barely see you as it is. Bringing a kid into this, we're just not ready. His words stung, a mix of disappointment and frustration. But we won't ever be ready. There's never a perfect time. I thought aloud. I mean, we talked about this before. Michael let out a heavy sigh, running his hands through his hair. I know we did, but things are different now. The business is at a critical point, and we're just not in the right place for this, Em. His words felt like a punch to the gut, leaving me winded. It wasn't the response I hoped for, and it hurt more than I expected. So what? We just keep waiting until when? Until it's too late. Come on, don't be like that. It's not about putting it off indefinitely, just not right now, okay? Let's get through this patch, and we'll revisit, I promise, he said, his tone gentle but firm. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The conversation had not gone as I hoped, leaving a heavy silence between us as the night drew in. The gap between us felt wider than ever. 2 years flew by, and the change in Michael was like night turning into day, only in reverse. He was always at the office, buried in work, leaving me alone in our big silent house. I found myself diving into my teaching, taking on extra classes, even snagging a part-time job to fill the echoing quiet of my days and nights. When Michael did show up, it was like living with a storm cloud. Parked in front of the TV, a beer in hand, he'd throw out comments about how I looked, how the dinner tasted like cardboard, or how the house wasn't up to his standards. It was nonsense, all of it. I kept our home spotless, cooked meals that would make a chef nod in approval, and as for my looks, I hadn't let myself go. But the way Michael went on, you'd think I'd given up on everything. Deep down, I knew this wasn't about me or how clean the house was. My dad told me there was someone else, that his late nights were more about who he was with than what he was doing. I've seen enough shifty glances in my time, taught enough kids to know when someone's hiding something. One evening I couldn't take the charade any longer. Michael staggered in late, more booze on his breath than words in his hello. I was waiting for him, my mind made up. We need to talk, I said, cutting right to the chase as he flopped down on the couch. About? He didn't even look up, just flicked through the channels on the TV. Us, I gestured between us, the vast distance despite the few feet. I can't do this anymore, Michael, I'm thinking we should get a divorce. Finally, he looked at me, his eyes narrowing. Divorce? Are you out of your mind? Do you know what that would do to my reputation? Your reputation. I couldn't believe my ears. Is that all you care about? What about us? What about how unhappy I am? Michael scoffed, taking a swig from the bottle he brought in with him. You're being dramatic. It's not that bad. Not that bad? I was fuming now. Michael, you're never here, and when you are, all you do is complain and drink. That's not a marriage, I don't even know what that is. He stood up then, his expression hardening. We're not getting a divorce, end of discussion. I won't have people talking, saying I couldn't keep my wife happy. I stared at him, disbelief and anger swirling in my chest. So you're happy to live a lie for appearances? That's enough, Emily. I'm going to bed. We're not talking about this anymore, he said, turning and leaving the room, leaving me standing there, my heart breaking in silence. The last couple of months had been rough. I felt like a shadow of myself, dragging through each day with a heaviness that sunk deeper than just fatigue. Food lost its taste, and my clothes hung loose on my frame. Teaching, something I'd always loved, became a chore. I barely got through. Michael seemed oblivious to it all, more concerned about the dust on the TV stand than the fact I could barely muster the strength to get out of bed. It got to a point where even I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was off, and it wasn't just the blues. Dragging myself to the doctor's office felt like climbing a mountain, but I needed answers. Sitting in that sterile room, when the doctor told me I was pregnant, it was like a jolt of electricity, happy, fear, confusion, it all hit me at once. But through that storm of emotions, one thing stood clear. I wanted this baby, even if it meant going it alone. Telling Michael should have been a moment we shared, but given the state of things, I was dreading his reaction. My fears weren't unfounded. When I finally mustered the courage to tell him, his reaction was like a slap in the face. Pregnant. His voice was a mix of disbelief and anger. You want to bring a kid into this mess? I stood my ground, holding on to the newfound resolve that came with the thought of being a mother. Yes, I do, and I'll raise this child with or without you. Michael laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. Without me? You think you can handle this on your own? You're not exactly young, Emily. His words stung, but I was beyond caring about his opinions. I am fully capable of raising this child. It's clear you don't want any part in this, so maybe it's best if you leave. That set him off. Michael was furious, his words a venomous stream I refused to absorb. He stormed out, and the silence he left behind was a relief compared to his presence. 3 days passed without a word from him. I was alone, truly alone, with a life growing inside me, and a marriage crumbling around me. I couldn't understand how we got here, how the man I married became a stranger, how our plans for a family turned into a battleground. My mind was a jumble of thoughts, worries about the future pressing down on me. That's when I stumbled upon something that turned my already upside-down world completely inside out. Late one evening while scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself from the loneliness, I noticed a message request on Facebook. It was from someone I didn't know, a woman. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it, my heart sinking as I read her words. The message was brief but clear. She claimed to be in love with Michael, telling me to let him go because he didn't love me anymore. My initial reaction was disbelief, followed by a bitter laugh. Of course, there was someone else. The late nights, the detachment, it all made sense now. But seeing it in black and white was a slap I wasn't prepared for. Fury and hurt swirled inside me, urging me to do something, anything. So I did what any self-respecting scorned woman would do. I went to her profile. There, smiling back at me from the glowing screen, were pictures of Michael and her, cozy and smiling, a stark contrast to the coldness I'd been living with. I felt sick, my hands trembling as I put the phone down. It was one thing to suspect, another to have it confirmed so blatantly. I needed to confront Michael, to hear him admit it. But first, I needed support. Staring at my phone, the message from Michael's mistress still burning bright on the screen, I felt a surge of disgust and betrayal so intense it was like a physical blow. My hand shook with a mix of rage and heartache. Without thinking, I dialed Anna, my sister, needing someone to anchor me in this storm. "Anna," I choked out the moment she answered, my voice a whirlwind of emotions. "He's been cheating. There's someone else, and she had the nerve to message me." Anna's voice came through sharp and clear, laced with anger on my behalf. "Are you okay? What are you going to do?" "I'm done, Anna. I'm filing for a divorce. I can't do this anymore. Not only that, I'll make sure he pays for this compensation for his cheating and alimony for the baby," I said, my voice growing stronger with each word, my resolve hardening. Before Anna could reply, a shadow fell over me. Michael had entered the room, his face a mask of fury and shock. Without a word, he snatched the phone from my hands, ending the call. "Filing for divorce, huh? And you think I'm going to just roll over and accept that?" he spat out, his voice laced with disdain. "I don't care what you accept. You've made your bed and now you're going to lie in it," I shot back, my heart pounding in my chest. Michael sneered, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "I'm not marrying her, Emily. It was just an affair. And you think I'll give you a divorce? Pay you? I won't let you drag my name through the mud, and I sure as hell won't be paying for a kid that might not even be mine." He laughed bitterly, his words like daggers. "You don't have a choice. I'll go through the courts if I have to. You think you can live this double life, juggling your wife and your mistress without any consequences. You're wrong," I said, standing my ground, despite the storm of emotions raging inside me. The words Michael spat out about not wanting the baby and his refusal to leave his double life behind hit me hard. I was reeling from his coldness, his outright cynicism. In that moment, my decision was made. I was leaving. But as I turned to grab my things, a sharp pain cut through my stomach, so intense it ripped a scream from my throat. "Michael, call an ambulance," I gasped, doubled over in pain, clutching at my belly. He looked at me, annoyance flickering in his eyes before being replaced by a reluctant sense of responsibility. "I'll drive you," he muttered, clearly irritated by the inconvenience. It was pouring outside, the kind of relentless rain that blurred the world into a watery haze. I struggled to the car, each movement a burst of agony. Michael drove silent and tense as we navigated the slick country roads. Then horror struck. A warm rush of blood, a crimson stain spreading over my clothes and onto the car seat. "Michael," I cried out, terror seizing me. "There's so much blood." His reaction was a mixture of anger and disgust. "Get out," he barked, pulling over with a screech. "You're ruining the upholstery." In disbelief and pain, I somehow managed to get out of the car, expecting, I don't know what, help maybe. But Michael just drove off, leaving me there alone, in pain and bleeding, on the side of the road. I don't know how long I was there before darkness swallowed me whole. When I woke up, the sterile white of a hospital room greeted me and my sister Anna was there, her face etched with worry and relief. "Emily, thank God," she breathed out, squeezing my hand. "I found you on the road. I was so scared when our call dropped, and I came looking for you." The pain had dulled to a throb, overshadowed by a heavy sense of loss. "The baby," I whispered, fearing the answer. Anna's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Em," she said. "They couldn't save the pregnancy." Grief washed over me, a tidal wave of sorrow for the life that would never be. Amidst the pain, Anna shared that Michael had been in an accident too, found not far from where she'd found me. It seemed fate had a cruel sense of irony. "He's here in the hospital," she said quietly. It was his fault, the crash. It wasn't long before a police officer entered my room. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes, introducing himself as Officer Daniels. He pulled up a chair, his demeanor gentle yet professional. "Mrs. Thompson, I understand this is a difficult time for you, but I need to ask you some questions about last night," he said. "Your sister informed us of the circumstances leading up to your situation," he started, glancing at Anna before turning his attention back to me. Taking a deep breath, I nodded, signaling him to continue. "Yes, I'll tell you whatever you need to know," I replied. Officer Daniels nodded, taking out a notepad. "Can you tell me about the argument you had with your husband?" he asked. The memories came flooding back, and I recounted the events, my voice steady despite the pain that throbbed in my heart. "We argued about our failing marriage, about his infidelity, and then when I needed him the most, he abandoned me on the side of the road," I said. The officer's brows furrowed as he scribbled down notes. "And he was aware of your condition, that you were pregnant?" he inquired. "Yes, he knew," I replied. "I told him, and he didn't care. He left me there alone," I managed, the bitterness in my voice surprising even me. Officer Daniels' expression softened. "I'm sorry you had to go through that, Mrs. Thompson," he said. "Based on your account and the preliminary investigation, we're looking into charges of neglect and endangerment against your husband. His actions led to serious consequences for you and the loss of your pregnancy." Anna squeezed my hand, her presence a silent support. The thought of Michael facing consequences for his actions was a cold comfort, but it was justice, however small. "What happens now?" I asked, the weight of everything crashing down on me all at once. "We'll proceed with the investigation, and I'll need you to provide a formal statement when you're ready," Officer Daniels assured me, his voice firm as he stood to leave. "Take care of yourself, Mrs. Thompson. We'll be in touch." After he left, the room was silent save for the steady beep of the heart monitor. Anna was the first to break the silence. "He'll get what's coming to him, Em. You're not alone in this." The days that followed were a blur of doctors, police statements, and endless hours of trying to piece together a semblance of normalcy. Michael had been charged, and the news of his actions and subsequent arrest made headlines, tarnishing the reputation he valued above all else. After everything settled, the divorce, the court cases, and Michael's downfall, I started to rebuild my life, brick by brick. The compensation and the justice served felt like cold comfort, but it was closure. The press had a field day with Michael's story, his reputation tarnished beyond repair. He lost his job, his status, and his ability to charm his way through life. As for me, I took it as a sign to start fresh. I found an apartment not too far from the school, a place filled with light and hope, a stark contrast to the shadows of my past. Returning to teaching felt like coming home, the smiles and laughter of my students a balm to my soul. One afternoon, as I was tidying up my classroom, Marie, a fellow teacher and friend, popped her head in. "Hey Emily, you heading out soon?" she asked. "Yeah, just finishing up here," I replied, stacking some papers. She leaned against the door frame, her expression serious. "You know, we're all really glad you're back. The kids missed you. Hell, we all did." I smiled, touched by her words. "Thanks, Marie. It feels good to be back. Feels like I'm finally moving forward, you know?" Marie nodded, understanding. "You've been through so much, Emily, but you're one of the strongest people I know. You've got this whole new chapter ahead of you now." I chuckled. The idea of a new chapter still feeling a bit surreal. "Yeah, a new chapter. Just got to make sure it's a good one, right?" "Exactly," she agreed with a grin. "And hey, who knows? Maybe there's a new love story in there too, when you're ready, of course." The thought had crossed my mind, the possibility of opening my heart again. But I knew if that chapter were ever to be written, I'd approach it with more caution, more wisdom. "I'll take my time with that one," I said, my voice steady. "But for now, my heart's full enough with these kids and getting my life back on track." Marie nodded, pushing off from the doorframe. "Well, just know we've got your back, Emily, through thick and thin." As she left, her words lingered in the air, a reminder of the support system I had around me. My journey hadn't been easy, and the scars would always be a part of me. But as I looked out at the empty classroom, filled with the echoes of laughter and learning, I felt a sense of peace.
My name is Sandra Holmes. I am 40 years old and I have no kids from my second marriage. My husband is a kind man who never misses our monthly dates. No matter how busy he is, he always keeps his promises. I know I shouldn't compare him to my first husband, but I have never regretted my divorce, nor have I regretted getting remarried. And this month is our 8th wedding anniversary. My husband had reserved a table at a fancy restaurant with a view of the sea. I thought we were going to have a wonderful time. But then I ran into the last person I wanted to see. It was Jim Stone, my ex-husband from 10 years ago. We were about to leave the restaurant after finishing our meal, when my husband excused himself to go to the restroom. I was admiring the ocean view from the window. What a beautiful view! As I gazed at the sea, I reminisced about the times my husband and I had spent looking at the ocean together. Just then, I heard someone call my name. And when I turned around, "Hey, what's so beautiful? Do you think a regular ocean appears nice to someone like you who's pretty much broke?" "Jim. Hey, long time no see. Why are you..." "Why? I'm the one who should be asking you why." Jim sat down in the chair my husband had been using, looking at me as if I was a joke. "Yes, those eyes. I put up with those eyes for a whole decade of our marriage. I never thought I'd run into you here. Can someone like you, who doesn't have much money, really eat at a fancy place like this? Can you even afford it? Or are you here for a once-in-a-lifetime thing? It's our wedding anniversary." "Ah. I see. Poor people can only come to places like this on anniversaries, huh? I come here often, you know." "You're still pathetic. Isn't there someone with you?" "Yeah, there is. I just sent her to pay. You know, handling money is a woman's job." I thought he was still the same, always belittling women. "Ah, she's back. Just wait there." The woman who came back was his lover from 10 years ago. She has aged quite a bit, her beauty half what it used to be, and she looks worn out from life. I guess Jim has been living it up while his wife suffers. "You're still wearing shabby clothes, aren't you? Aren't you embarrassed to dress so poorly? Talking to such a terrible man like him makes me feel sick." I turned my gaze toward the restroom, hoping my husband would return soon, and there he was. He had been watching us for a while, as I was talking to another man. Seeing the confusion on my face, he approached us. "Excuse me, do you need something from my wife?" "Your wife? This woman is your wife?" "Yes." "What do you need? You also look poor." "I guess poor women always remarry poor men." "Please don't be rude. My husband is a very respectable man." Jim snorted in disapproval at my response. "Humph. You must be just a useless, broke man." Then he glared at my husband. I thought, this man really hasn't changed at all. Jim was very selfish. Although he worked for a major corporation, it was unclear if he was competent. He was good at sucking up to his boss, though. He blamed his mistakes on his juniors and loudly claimed their achievements were due to his guidance. How he managed to climb the corporate ladder is beyond me. But by the time we divorced, he had become a manager. Jim claimed he was an elite employee, but I never thought of him as elite. I graduated from a prestigious university. That's what Jim would always brag about. Not just any university, but a very different kind from the ordinary ones. When I was only dating him, I believed his exaggerated stories and thought he was really smart. But when we got married, I discovered that was his only real talent. Plus, he consistently degraded me, even though I only completed high school. Your parents were too poor to send you to university, right? But it's good for you. You didn't have the brains for it anyway. If your family had been rich, you would have had to go to university. But it would have been impossible for someone as stupid as you. My family wasn't poor. I just wanted to start working sooner rather than going to college. Enough with the excuses. You can't handle not making excuses, right? You're an incompetent woman, after all. It's good for women, isn't it? Even if they're incompetent or stupid, as long as they have good looks, they can get by. If they catch a competent man, they can live well. I never imagined he would say such things before we married. So his transformation after marriage shocked me. Moreover, his parents weren't wealthy landowners. His father was just a director. Yet he ruthlessly looked down on anyone he considered poor. You really can't do anything right. You're bad at cooking, you can't clean, and you can't even have kids. Marrying you was a huge mistake. It wasn't a physical issue that prevented me from having kids, it was the stress caused by Jim. My family has always valued frugality and cherishing what we have. But when I cooked with radish leaves to save money, he yelled, "Are you trying to feed me trash?" and threw them in the trash. It made me realize how different we fundamentally were. One day, he told me he had a lover. The woman was much younger than he was. He pushed for a divorce, saying it was better for him to remarry a younger woman. I was happy to divorce such a man. I signed the divorce papers. Who is this man, Sandra? He's my ex-husband, Jim Stone. Oh, I see. Of course, I had told my husband about everything Jim had said and done to me. It had been a painful 10 years, and I had shared it all with tears. Then, without saying anything, my husband just listened and finally said, "Let's be happy from now on." You really dared to marry such a woman like her? Since you're marrying a woman from a poor family, you must be a broke guy too. Well, maybe. Maybe not. Of course, you are. So, you're also a broke man, huh? What? Marrying a poor person means you're broke too, am I right? But, why did you divorce such a wonderful person? Wonderful? Your eyes must be fooling you. Truly wonderful means having a beautiful wife like mine. He indicated his wife as he pointed at her, who stood there looking embarrassed. Is that woman your wife? Yes, she's beautiful, isn't she? She's actually my boss's daughter. Marrying the boss's daughter definitely helps one climb the career ladder faster. Marrying a broke woman like you probably means you're just a regular employee. Too bad. A regular employee? I haven't heard that word in years. What are you trying to prove? Bottom-tier guy marrying a bottom-tier woman. It just means you'll both be broke for the rest of your lives. And you think you deserve to eat in such a fancy restaurant like this? Well, this level of restaurant isn't a problem for us. Yeah, sure, if that's what you think. Just then, a waiter passed by. And my husband pulled out a black card, instructing him to settle the bill. Jim, surprised by the black card, tried not to show it but snorted again. Is that a black card? Showing off a card like that here, you're not used to it. Not used to it? You must have borrowed it from someone. Showing off by flashing the card. But later you'll have to pay back the person who lent you that card, right? I can imagine you're scared to splash the cash in such a place. It's all part of your act. Ha! Funny thing to say. Who would lend their card, I wonder? No matter how naive someone is, they wouldn't lend their card. How would you know that? Jim, you shouldn't say such insulting things. What's insulting? I'm just stating the truth. There's no way you could be wealthy if you married a poor woman like her. My wife is poor, you say? Yes, that's right. Her folks' place is a rundown one-floor home. You know that, right? Or maybe you were too embarrassed to visit her home. So you went to a family restaurant instead? Meeting her parents at a family restaurant for a marriage proposal is unheard of. But for poor people like you, it's probably the norm. Family restaurant, huh? The fact that you thought of that means you must have done your greeting there, right? If you hadn't experienced it yourself, you wouldn't have thought of it. What are you talking about? I'm not short on money. I wouldn't do such a miserable thing. Yet you came up with it. I never would have thought of that. Right, Sandra? What about you? Well, I think I'd like to go to a family restaurant occasionally, but we rarely get the chance. Exactly. What? You're lying. When you were with me, you were happy to go to family restaurants. That's because I had never really been to one before. Oh, I bet. You sure talk big. Coming to such a fancy restaurant just makes you want to act all important. Maybe that's you? It seems like you don't fit in this kind of place. What? You seem out of place, don't you think? There's no way I'm out of place. You're the one who doesn't fit in here. Do you even know who I am? Why would I know you? If you want me to remember you, just become famous. I am well known, though. Well, it's impossible for a regular employee like you to know me, I guess. What? I'm a manager, not a regular employee. Manager? Yes, how about that? Impressive, isn't it? At that moment, the chauffeur arrived, greeted politely, and informed my husband. Sir, your car is ready. Thank you. Huh, what's going on? Oh well, you're probably just the president of some small company. I work for a major corporation, the Holmes Group, and I'm a manager there. Oh, you're still just a manager? Excuse me. You consider yourself top tier. But staying as a manager at your age won't bring any advancement. What, this man works at our company? Yes, he's been with our company for a long time. What do you mean our company? You talk big, but you're just an office lady from a small company. That's right, I don't have kids or any reason to quit my job. But. So, you can't have kids? I was right, you can't have kids. Something's wrong with you. Hey, there's a line to how rude you can be. Sandra is perfectly fine. If she's fine, why can't she get pregnant? Women are supposed to have kids. I don't need to explain that to you. You can't say it because it would prove there's something wrong with her. This man is hopeless. Yes, so bad it's beyond saving. This man's name is Jim Stone. Yes, I understand. He's fired. Sandra, please contact HR. Okay. What? What are you saying? Trying to shock me with that? What company's president are you, thinking you can fool me with such an obvious act? Are you stupid? Jim, my husband is the president of the Holmes Group. What? That can't be. However, the driver, with a look of pity, nodded as he looked at Jim. What, seriously? Is he really our president? Yes, and I am his wife and the vice president of our company. What? That's ridiculous. How could Sandra from a poor family end up as vice president? With just a high school diploma? Such things don't matter. Whether someone graduated from high school or college doesn't determine their worth. That's ridiculous. I will never forgive anyone who insults my wife. No, there's a union, yes, there is a union. The union will protect us employees. You're a manager, right? Managers are not union members. So, you are not protected by the union. Didn't you know that? Seriously. Well, you better brace yourself. Since you insulted my wife, you must face the consequences. Oh no. Jim had a stunned look on his face, but my husband didn't care and asked me if we should go. Then, we left the table. That night, perhaps bothered by the afternoon's events, Jim called. His attitude was completely different from his arrogance earlier. Sandra, it's been a while. What do you mean? We already had a talk this afternoon, Jim. Ah, yes. What can I do for you? Your dismissal hasn't been issued yet. Ah, you guys were just joking, right? Huh? What do you mean? About you being the vice president and your husband being the president. No, they're all true. I'm surprised you don't know who your own company's president and vice president are. Why would you be the vice president, though? Because the best way I can help my husband is from the vice president's position. No. But it's strange. Why would a high school graduate be the vice president? It's not strange at all. I only graduated high school because I wanted to start working early. But after we separated, I acquired a college degree. Huh, really? Yes, there are schools you can do from home. So, you really are the president's wife? Yes. How did you manage to marry the president? When did you get married? We got married after I divorced you. I met the president soon after, and we dated for about 2 years before getting married. Why would the president take an interest in someone like you? Stop being so rude. Oh, sorry. Connections are mysterious, aren't they? I just happened to meet the president. Even so, why would he marry someone broke like you? Is he a philanthropist? No one marries for charity. If he's not a philanthropist, did he marry you to make you his slave? It's odd otherwise. Maybe today you got lucky to be taken to a fancy restaurant. But usually you must be having plain, poor meals, right? And living a difficult life where you can't even buy what you like, am I right? Why would you think that? That's not true at all. You're the only one who would do such a thing. There's no way you could marry such a rich man. Why do you think so? Rich people have connections with politicians and other wealthy people. If a poorly raised woman like you shows up at their parties, it would embarrass the president. Or maybe he lets his mistress attend those instead. You're making wild assumptions. If you keep looking down on me like this, you'll truly regret it. I'm just concerned for you. A woman with a poor upbringing like you marrying a rich man like the president will only suffer. A regular employee's husband would suit you better. marrying someone richer than me. You must be a foolish woman who can't see ahead. Who's the fool here? If you called just to say that, I'm hanging up. No, wait. I'm not trying to look down on you. It's just true that you come from poverty that can't be helped. Thinking I'm looking down on you for that is completely wrong. You say I come from a poor family, but my father is wealthy. Your family is poorer than mine. I didn't say it back then because of your pride. Your family home isn't even half the size of mine. Your father is just a department head, and you're still just a manager. That's not true. When I proposed to you, you were living in a small single-story house. That was because we were renovating our home then. We had stored all our belongings elsewhere. It was just a temporary residence, no need to move to a big house, my mother said. That can't be true. You don't have to believe it, but since the renovation is finished. Even if you say you want to visit my parents at home, you've stubbornly refused to go again. I couldn't tell you the truth. Who would visit such a poor, run-down house? You really are hopeless. Then, I'll send you a picture. This is my family home. You'll see from the picture. The photo I sent was of a large mansion. That's my house. I lived there for a while after our divorce. What? That can't be true. It's true. If this is true, then why were you working as an office lady in a small company? If you're so rich, you wouldn't need to work. And if you did work, wouldn't it be at a large corporation? Indeed, my father is the president of a major company. That company was a new one he started. When it was time to decide who would be the president, it was decided that my brother would take the role. So, I volunteered to handle the administrative work. Now, that company has advanced to the top of the industry. Is that true? Were you really so rich? Yes, this is the truth. This is the real me that you used to look down on. So, that's why you could marry the president? That's not it. I met the president because we shared the same hobbies. We met through our hobbies and hit it off. He didn't know I was the daughter of a wealthy family. And I didn't know he was the president. So, you are at the company where I work because of that? How long have you been at that company? I joined the company right after our divorce. I had a connection by chance. Why? When you were with me, you were a clerk at your brother's company. And after we divorced, you changed jobs? That's right. My brother's company has grown so much. And he told me it was time to do what I love. So I thought I might as well pursue what I've always wanted to do. Then, just as a senior position became vacant, they headhunted me. But at that stage, I still had no acquaintance with the president. He was still someone high above. I don't understand. How can you have connections like that? So, rich people just connect with other rich people? That's why I'm saying those things don't matter. Why do you think like that? It's because of that mindset that you're still just a manager. I wonder why your wife hasn't gotten tired of you yet. She can't get tired of me. I'm supporting her. Keep it up with that attitude, and you'll get what's coming to you. Anyway, that's the situation, so stop belittling me already. I wasn't trying to belittle you. I really thought you were poor. About that dismissal you mentioned this afternoon. Oh, yes, your dismissal. After all the mocking you did, it's only natural you'd be dismissed. That would make me in a tough spot. Can you talk to the president so I don't get fired? What? You were just mocking me tremendously, and yet you ask not to be dismissed? That's impossible, you know. I have nothing but resentment towards you. Why? The fact that you don't think you're resented is truly astonishing. What have I done to you? There's too much to even remember, it's that much. I bet your wife thinks the same as me. Why don't you ask her what she really thinks? Though I doubt she'll tell you. I only said those things because I thought you were poor. Why do you think I'm mocking you when I'm just being honest? Once words are spoken, they can't be taken back, you know? You should understand that as an adult. I do understand that. Then you should understand why you're being dismissed, right? No, I don't understand at all. Please, I'll be in trouble if I'm dismissed. If it were just about this afternoon, the president might have overlooked it. But then you had to call and ask why this and why that. My husband is here now, frowning. He really thinks you're hopeless. Maybe you should just give up, there's no saving you. No. If the president is right there, why can't you just say so? It's only natural for a husband and wife to be together. Besides, you didn't ask if someone was with me, did you? That's true, but you've poured gasoline on your own fire. You mocked not just me, but my parents and my husband too. Look, I didn't think you'd get this angry. Please forgive me. If I had known you were a wealthy lady, I wouldn't have said such mocking things. I won't say them again, please forgive me. Just give up. I think your dismissal order will come down tomorrow. Wait, please. Jim's voice echoed on the other end of the phone, but I hung up and looked at my husband. The next day, Jim came to the president's office. His face was all white, with dark circles under his eyes. And he seemed to be in a really bad condition. I was in a meeting with my husband, the president, about business matters. But I was startled by Jim's appearance. Jim, what's wrong? I'm very sorry. Jim apologized as he sat down on the spot. Jim, what are you doing? Please, just don't fire me. What do you mean? Of course, the president knew about yesterday's conversation. He had guessed from my responses during the call. And I had detailed Jim's remarks after hanging up. Therefore, his impression of Jim was very poor, and his anger was greater than mine. I am truly sorry again. I didn't know your wife was from a wealthy family. I think she is a perfect match for the president's wife. I also heard she graduated from university, even if it was through correspondence. She's a hard worker, a far cry from my own wife. So you decided on her as your wife, and then you got rid of her, right? What? Jim looked up at the president, wondering how he knew such a thing. Of course, I've told my husband everything. We're married, after all. Or do you and your wife not talk about your pasts? No, it's not like that, but that was a long time ago. I was young then. I thought Sandra was just a poor man's daughter. So I thought it was okay to have a mistress. How does it come to that? Is that why you think it's okay to commit sexual harassment or power harassment? What do you mean? Don't tell me you haven't done it? There are complaints from your female coworkers. They say if our company doesn't handle it, they'll go to the police. Our company was just discussing what to do about it. When your disrespectful remarks came yesterday. It's really hopeless, isn't it? That's right. I wouldn't have thought you were actually harassing or bullying. But watching you yesterday, it seemed all too true. You don't even regard women as people, do you? You think they're below you. No, I never, even if that were true, firing me would be too harsh. Please, show some mercy. Well, indeed, you have a family. If you were fired, you wouldn't be the only one in trouble. That's right. Exactly. My husband smirked and looked at me. So, what do you think, Sandra? How about sending Jim to our Ohio branch? Wait, what? The Ohio branch is in a region with very few people, practically unsustainable as a company. The former president, who came from that town, established the branch there to help the local people. But it's a lonely place with just one employee. The previous employee reportedly went mad from the loneliness. We want you to turn that branch around in 3 years. If you can do that, we'll bring you back here. Of course, if you can't, you'll spend your retirement in Ohio. Thank you. I appreciate it. Under the guise of the president's mercy, Jim set off for the Ohio branch. But both myself and my husband knew it was an impossible task. Having to work tirelessly alone for the small number of town residents. It was obvious that there wouldn't be any profit to be made. Unaware of this, Jim moved to the branch all motivated. His transfer was with his mistress who had been his wife. But surely she wouldn't be satisfied with just the cold and nothing else there. And eventually, she reached her limit. His salary plummeted, and despite being the branch manager in name, his pay was minimal, leading his wife to start yelling. This resulted in daily arguments. And although he boasted that if he turned things around in 3 years, he could return to the head office, his city-bred wife couldn't believe his words. She left the divorce papers and went back to the city. Jim tried his best for a year, but no matter how hard he worked, the population wouldn't increase and no profits would come. Eventually, he realized that no amount of effort here would change anything. And one day submitted his resignation. After leaving the company on his own terms, Jim contacted his wife, but by then, she had found someone new. Jim was not only ignored by her but was beaten up by her new man. And ended up in the hospital. After being discharged, Jim looked for a job, but at his age, he found nothing. And life became harder for him. He lived in a shabby, run-down apartment. And the only job he could find was as a nighttime store clerk. The man who had once boasted of graduating from a prestigious university now stood alone in a store at night. As for me, I continued to be protected by my kind husband. Enjoying another wonderful date this month. Marrying him changed my life so much, I'm grateful that Jim and I divorced.